Do you want to start?
Welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I am not your host, Andrew. Doo-doo-doo. I was waiting for the music to come. It didn't come.
That's because I have a headphone in, so you can't hear it.
Oh.
Here. Not that it'll make any difference now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So recorded my little...
I did, yes.
Oh, good.
So, we had an interesting conversation today that I thought we could share. We were talking about community support and creativity. And you had some thoughts about that. Do you want to share?
That means I have to remember my thoughts. Can you jog my memory of my thoughts? I think I was just thinking about how lack of community to help in like raising of children and families and all that kind of thing results in more responsibility on us as adults that previous generations didn't necessarily have, and it makes that creative time more difficult to come by. Is that kind of a summation of...
Yeah. So, and that kind of makes sense because you look at the people in the past who were artists and creative people. They were
crazy.
But lots of them were also wealthy.
Yes.
Right? Like they were, like most of the great strides forward were made by wealthy people. I was reading I forget the guy's name, but the guy who invented the personal essay, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of these, lots of authors that write about themselves now, they're all traced back to this one guy in the 1600s or something like that, 1700s, who he was some sort of lord, and he just retreated. Yeah, probably that as well. But yeah, he had a writing room in his estate that he had disappeared to, and he'd write in his. And so it's easier. It's easier to be creative if you have no other responsibilities, I guess, is what it is, right? Like if you can afford to pay your servants to make your meals and clean your house and do your dishes and take care of your kids, and you have lots of time to be creative. But what are some of the ways that you said you had some thoughts about things that we could do to increase our time to be creative and stuff?
Well, it's in some of the research that I've been reading and kind of preparing for my start of grad school on Monday, I have been looking at systems for people of neurodiverseness.
So ADHD and autism and things like that. And the honest truth of it, the maker community in general is probably full of a bunch of people with ADHD. You know, at least, like, those of you who are listening on Spotify, I'll put a poll there. That's why they do
creepy things in their basement.
Yeah, that's why they do weird things in their basement, Dave.
All right, weird, not creepy. Sure. That video wasn't creepy at all.
I do weird things in the open. I don't hide like David Beckwith.
That's why we're not building a basement.
Anyway, speaking of ADHD,
yeah, there we go.
I'm going to put a poll at the end of Spotify, and just say, do you have ADHD or do you self-diagnose with ADHD? And we'll see how many people listen and report or self-report on that. And then maybe the next time we record together, I'll share the results. It'll be interesting to see.
Okay, so tangent back, train back on tracks. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So I was thinking about systems, and one of the things that I had been reading about was I saw a thing, or I read a thing, and it was talking about how we follow traditional patterns of things even when they're not working for us. Like my mom said that my socks and underwear have to go in the top drawer of my dresser, and they still go in the top drawer of my dresser. Having socks in my dresser is not an effective place for socks to be for me. And so one of the things that I saw said, put your socks in a bin by your shoes. because I don't wear socks unless I absolutely have to. And that only happens if I'm putting shoes on or I'm very cold. And I'm not very cold very often.
And even then it doesn't happen.
And even then I would rather wrap up in a blanket or find slippers. I don't enjoy socks. So having the socks by the shoes, and this for my kids, or our kids are like me as well. It eliminates that, we're leaving the house. Where's your socks? You've got to run upstairs, find socks. They can't find socks. If the socks are where you're going, it takes that stress. It takes that little bit away, and it actually saves you time, right? Like, it doesn't seem like a big thing, but it is when all of those things are the problem, right? Mm-hmm. So then you also put so you have like your drop station where you come in, and that's where things go and they have their place to go. And I know that there's like a place for everything and everything in its place, but make sure it's a place that works for you functionally. And that can be very difficult for people with ADHD or autism or whatever to figure out for themselves. And so finding help for that, there's lots of stuff on YouTube and on online, just some research about things that work, systems that will work better for you. One of the things, like, I put all my tea and everything that's I need for tea in one place, because when I have it scattered over 3 or 4 places, like, I have to go over here for my sugar and over here for my spoon and over here for my cup and over here for my tea. I don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's all in the same place and I just have to go to my one spot, yep, there's my teaspoon, my teacup, and my tea, then I'm more likely to do it and to have that self-care moment that I need. Music books, piano books, stuff, group things, where you're going to use them. You can make it aesthetically pleasing. You can have it organized. It doesn't have to be like, here's my zones of chaos all over the house. But there's no point in having things organized the way you were taught to organize them if it's not functioning for you.
Yeah. And conversely, it's okay to have, like, your teaspoon here and your stuff,
if that works for you,
in one group. But it's also okay to have another teaspoon somewhere else too, right? Like, in a shop setting, it's nice. Everybody likes the tool wall look where everything is hung up in perfect order and harmony. And, you can look at your tool wall and you can see, oh, that's missing. But if your tool wall is on the other side of the room from where you need a specific tool on the tool wall, like you have a hammer over there and you need a hammer on this side, but there's no hammer, but there is a rock. You're more likely to grab the rock instead of the hammer. So it's okay to have the tools you need at the station that you need them as well, even if you end up having multiple screwdrivers, for example. You're giving me the I want to talk finger.
Oh, I'm just trying to remember my thought. And my thought is, a lot of accidents, I feel like, happen for people, especially with ADHD, when things are like across the room, because you don't want to go over there because you're going to lose that dopamine hit by walking over there to get it.
Yeah.
And so you do stupid things and take shortcuts or make things work that don't work and cause problems, right? And
you use a chisel to open a paint can.
Yeah.
Instead of walking 5 feet to get the paint can opener and then slice your finger open or whatever.
Yeah.
Happens.
Well, and as many of you know right now, like, we're living in our travel trailer while we build our house. And I've been using my mother-in-law's kitchen over my kitchen. And I didn't even realize some of the things that I had changed in my own kitchen, like our cutting boards and our knives were all together. Like, the cutting boards were below the knives. And so I just had to pull one out and put it up, and there was my knife. But in her kitchen, and it works great for her, but it doesn't work for me. The cutting board is on the opposite side to the knives.
I don't think it works great for my mom either, because she hates cooking.
It's true. It doesn't bother her. But
to that point though, that could actually be why she hates cooking,
It could be.
right? I mean, not necessarily. She probably hates cooking because she doesn't like cooking. But if you have,
Well, she'd just rather be outside, right?
yeah, if you have specific barriers every time you're doing a task,
It's frustrating.
it gets frustrating. And if you don't know how to fix them, or you don't even recognize them as barriers, maybe even, then they just continue to be there. And so then you hate the process, even though you don't really hate the process. You hate that one individual barrier that's wrecking it for you.
Yeah, and you lose a lot of time that you don't even think about, but you're like mentally, no, I don't want to do that. And so you procrastinate and it builds and it becomes a problem. Yeah. So there's things like that, like having the knives and cutting boards together, having things like that in areas where I'm going to use them. It makes it a much more effective place for me to be.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
I do.
So I think there's systems like that. And I think when we look at our kids too, be kind, involve your kids, say, okay, what do you need? You know, something that we've always done too is our dishes. As soon as we had kids, I put the dishes low so that the kids could access them. And like our upper cupboards our upper cupboards are really kind of useless because I don't actually put a lot in there because I'm a lot shorter than you are.
You can't reach them.
I can't reach them. So I don't really use upper cupboards that much, but always had like the kids' dishes and stuff where they could access them and then they could start putting them at the table or they could get their own cups and things like that also help free up the mom, I need you time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And I've noticed that like being at your parents' house where those things aren't accessible and like the water, we had water in a jug that was down low enough that the kids could fill it themselves. They can't fill it themselves. So now every time they want to drink, I have to go fill their cup because our 6-year-old is still too short to do that by herself. Right. And so there's like little things like that when you're like, oh, it doesn't take very long. But if it takes a minute and they want 3 or 4 drinks a day and there's 2 of them, well, there's 15 minutes almost just getting drinks of water for people. Right. So there's systems like that I think are important. And there's lots of little things that you can change and do that aren't expensive.
Yeah. And being, I think one of the most important things to do is to be cognizant of, you know, think about why are you procrastinating the thing that you know you should do?
Yeah.
And if there is a barrier there, whether it's a tool in the wrong place or things spread out or things not organized quite right, stopping and thinking about, hey, why is this a problem? And then going, hey, how can I fix this? And then you take that one step, suddenly that mental burden is gone. Suddenly that extra time that you spend doing the thing is gone. And the procrastination is gone. And so then you have more time to be creative without having to pay somebody to cook your food or clean your house.
Yeah. And, that's exactly it. And just thinking about those things and those systems that you can put in place to make your work from home, because most of us, even if we're working, we still have some work from home stuff that we're doing. How can you make that space function better for you? How can you flow better in your own life? Because there are those invisible barriers that we've placed on ourselves that we could change. So
great thoughts.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, just on the last thought, one of the things that has often stopped me from changing things is that I have felt almost like a betrayal of, like, my mom or my grandma or whoever said, this is the way you do it. And it's not. You've taken their advice. You've tried it. It's okay to modify and deviate and make it work for you. You don't need to continue to stab yourself in the eyeball if it's painful, right? Like,
yeah,
it's okay to change. And they're not even going to notice or care.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of that story. The daughter, the mom, and the grandma are all in the kitchen, and the daughter is cooking a ham, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she slices off the end of the ham before she puts it into the pot, and she thinks to herself, well, why do I do this? And she asks, Mom, why do we always cut the end off the ham before we put it in the pot? And the mom says, well, I don't know, that's the way my mom taught me how to do it. And so they turn to Grandma and say, Grandma, why do we slice the end off the ham before we put it in the pot? And Grandma says, well, when I first got married, I didn't have a pot big enough for a full ham, and so I had to cut the end off of it.
Yep.
And so sometimes the habits and the methodologies we have of organizing and doing things, they're pointless.
Exactly. They worked for people 50 years ago.
Yeah, they worked for somebody else. But they're not going to
work for us now.
But they're not going to work for, I mean, just because a tool wall looks magnificent doesn't mean a tool wall is functional for everybody.
Exactly.
And some people, artists, for example, some people like to have very discrete colors mixed up. And then you see some people and you're like, what is that mess of a palette?
Well, it's okay. So for us, closet-wise, my closet, to me, my clothes, hanging clothes are organized to me when they're hung by color in the rainbow. So I can go in and pick which color I feel like wearing. Your side looks like absolute chaos and despair.
But my side is organized correctly. My side is organized by function. Like I put my collar shirts, and then I put my...
So you shouldn't say organized correctly. Your side is organized for you. Correctly for you.
My side is organized correctly for me.
Yes.
Her side is organized for somebody with color OCD.
No, but that's how I pick things out. But it took me a long time to realize that's how I like to see it. Yeah. Because when I see it, when it's all mixed colors, it just irritates me.
Overwhelms you.
Yep. But you get overwhelmed looking at my side because it's not by function.
No, I don't care, honestly. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Your side drives me nuts.
You're the one that gets obsessed about the closet. Well, I only get obsessed about my side.
Which way the clothes are on the hanger, that's a you thing.
This just a space-saving thing. If you put everything facing the same way, then when you take it off the hanger, this is the perfect thing. This is a great example. If everything is in facing in different ways on the hanger, then you have to think about how you take the shirt and whether you put it on one way or the other. This isn't working for me.
No.
But makes sense in my head.
It's fine. That works for you.
Okay.
I'm happy if they get on the hangers.
Yes. Anyway, we're getting distracted.
It's true. I'm just saying there's things like that you can change up and you can make work for you.
Yeah. And if somebody else thinks it's crazy, that's fine. If it works for you, it works for you. Mm-hmm. Call to action. Call to action here. Everybody who listens to this, I would really appreciate if you send in some sort of what's a space / time saving organizational hack. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a I put a tool by each of my tools, or whether I find writing a list, or whatever the case is, whatever you find as a productivity / creativity hack that has helped you, I would love it. Absolutely love it if you sent it in to... Do you notice I'm talking with my hand even though we're on an audio podcast?
Yes, I do.
And it's bothering you?
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
That was sarcasm.
Okay. I'm going to ignore that because it was hurtful.
Yep. I'm trying not to look at your hand. Continue.
Anyway, I'd love it if you sent in one of those tips to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com. Mm-hmm. And we will compile them, share them on social media, and we'll talk about them maybe in a future podcast.
Yeah.
We will talk about them in a future podcast. With that.
Thanks for listening.
Leave
us a review if you can. That would be great.
Share 5-star rating. Tag us on the social media stuff. Because it really does... It really does help us grow. Yep. It does help us reach more people. And, as my wife, as you begin your journey into your master's program, I'm sure we'll probably be talking more about that type of stuff.
Based on my introductory readings, I will be doing lots of that stuff.
And yeah, let's head over. We had a bit of a change in our Patreon thing. So we are going to... Oh, he's still a patron, so never mind. Nothing changes yet, but we're going to be changing at the end of the month. Somebody canceled. That's okay. You can cancel. We won't hold it against anybody if you don't want to support anymore, but we do really appreciate the support.
Really?
And we have appreciated the support that we have received from everybody. And so if you do want to support more, feel free to jump up to the next level or share with a friend, and that will help us continue to...
Great.
Yeah, sharing is always good, and it will help us continue to share information. And if you have any questions, send them in to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com.
And if you have any suggestions, ideas, hacks, please send those in so that we can talk about them.
And hopefully apply them to ourselves, and we'll be better.
Yes.
Even if there's something like the sock bin hack, like something
I'm so excited about the sock bin hack. And I told the kids about it today, and they're like thrilled.
And if this is... It doesn't even have to be a maker related thing or an art or creativity, just a life hack,
Yep.
I found that in having Taco Tuesdays, for example, makes meal planning easier. And yeah, thanks for listening. So if you found anything from this episode to be helpful and you want to reinforce it for yourself, I'd like to invite you to share it with a friend in the next 24 hours. That'll help reinforce it in your mind, and it'll help those around you, which is always a good thing. So thanks again for listening, and now I'd like to say thank you to all the amazing patrons of the Workshop Therapy Podcast. You guys make the show possible. If you're finding the show helpful and you want to support it, there are a few tiers, including a simple $1 a month option to just say thanks. For $5 a month, you can get access to the patrons only feed that has a pre-show and a post-show, in addition to the regular podcast all in one feed. You all know that the good stuff happens after the official mics are off, right? If you can't support financially, I totally understand, but I'd love it if you left a 5-star review or told a friend about the podcast. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear that as well. Send it to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com, and I'll get it on the show. I want to say thank you to all the patrons of the Workshop Therapy Podcast, but especially to the founding fathers, and they are Mr. Matthew Serio from Argiano Serio, Mr. Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, Mr. Keith Drennan of Blackthorn Concepts, Mr. Eric Peterson of Overall Maker Works, Mr. Brandon Millichamp of Tectonic Creations, and the one and only the Grant Alexander. So a special thank you to the founding fathers, and thank you to everybody who supports and shares the Workshop Therapy Podcast.